Welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network, folks. We got a great show for you. First and foremost, let's give you the latest around the situation in Russia and Ukraine, that conflict. We'll be checking in with Dr. Gerald Horn to give us his analysis about the situation. Also, the great tampon shortage, how women all over the country are complaining about not having the feminine products that they need. What is the reason for the shortage? We'll break that down for you. And then later, we check in with the mayor of Augusta, Georgia, Mayor Hardy Davis, to talk to us a little bit about the state of democracy in the state of Georgia and so much more. And we're asking a question today. Should civil rights activists be honored as veterans of war? Yeah, great question, right? We'll talk about it as we continue to celebrate and talk about the importance of Juneteenth. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So happy to have you join us. Make sure that you join us on all of our streaming platforms as we discuss all of these big topics. And we're very, very excited to have these conversations. First and foremost, let me just share with you the latest that is coming out of New York and Buffalo, where the suspect, Peyton Gendron, has been charged with a federal hate crime in the shooting and killing of 10 Black people at the Top supermarket in Buffalo. This was something that many people had expected, and now it is happening at this point. So, tomorrow, as we will continue to watch how the story develops, but tomorrow we'll have a much more robust conversation about the implications of this federal hate crime. Again, this was expected. Considering the motives and some of the writings that Peyton had put out there on social media and just everything connected to this tragedy, we want to certainly delve deep into it, but we will talk about those things tomorrow on the show as we want to bring you up to the latest speed around the indictment against Peyton Gendron for that federal hate crime of killing 10 Black people in Buffalo, New York. We'll have that later on. But today we wanted to have the discussion around what's been happening in Russia and Ukraine. Some people are saying that this is a pivotal, critical moment that the United States, that Ukraine, that Poland, and other NATO allies and partners of the United States are in. There was a major meeting that happened today in Belgium where nations from across the globe gathered on a call to discuss the next steps. And this is in the middle of the fact that Russian forces have been moving further along into the eastern region of Ukraine. And Ukraine is saying that they don't have the military artillery to bring to combat the Russian forces. Now, it was also announced earlier this afternoon, President Biden said that he would commit another $1 billion. That's with the B, folks. $1 billion in military equipment to aid the Ukrainian people. We want to check in now with Dr. Gerald Horn, who is professor of history, of African American history. He is our analyst for foreign policy, and we are always happy to have him as part of the conversation. Also, we're joined by our culture crew members for today, Nir Muhammad, who is an educator and an activist and advocate, and then Lise Winnie, who is the host of a Millennials Anonymous podcast. We'll bring their voices in a moment. But Dr. Horn, thank you again, dear brother, for checking in with us. How are you this afternoon?
Hey, it's all good. How about you?
I'm good, Doc. I'm good. So this situation, people are saying that this situation right now where we're seeing that Ukraine President Zelensky said that out of all the great commitments that the nations from across the globe have pledged, that they only got about 10% of those military equipment and artillery needed to combat Russian forces. And President Biden, as I mentioned, said that he's going to commit another $1 billion. And I'm trying I'm trying to keep tabs on how much money has already been committed at this point, Dr. Horn. I know it's 40 billion here, 3 billion here, 1 billion here, but this is $1 billion worth of military equipment. There was another $250 million in humanitarian aid, such as food and water and other humanitarian aid that the president has committed the United States to. Is this the pivotal moment right now, even with the Russian forces making some headway in the eastern region of Ukraine?
It's likely, but I would like to point your audience attention to a striking article in today's New York Times, where their reporter, Julian Barnes, who covers this crisis, has just revealed what I consider to be shocking news, which is that Ukraine is not sharing intelligence with the United States of America. That is to say that Ukraine is sharing intelligence about Russia. The United States has satellite imagery that gives it an idea of what's happening with regard to Russian forces. The United States has shared intelligence with the Ukrainians that has allowed the Ukrainians to sink a Russian ship to kill Russian generals. But with regard to the United States having insight into the Ukrainian side of the conflict, the United States is flying blind.
Wow.
It's like trying to evaluate a boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, and you're only watching Manny Pacquiao. I mean, you can't get an adequate evaluation. And so, given the fact that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt nations on planet Earth, given the fact that there have already been reports about all of these millions and billions of dollars flooding from Washington into Ukraine being diverted into suspect channels, I think it's well past time for us to ask some very serious, profound, and searching questions about this conflict, because the ramifications and repercussions are already manifesting themselves. You know, I'm sure, about all of the stories leaking out of Washington about how Mr. Biden is becoming more and more unpopular. He may not even run in 2024. He's blaming inflation on Mr. Putin. But the fact of the matter is that the Federal Reserve just today, breaking news, folks, that interest rates are going up. You can see that in your credit card statement that arrives in a day or a week or so. You can see that if you go to buy a new car and try to get financing. Yep. You can see that if you try to buy a home and try to get financing. And you can also suspect that this inflationary spiral has something to do with this miscalculation about plunging ahead with regard to this failed conflict in Ukraine, which is now jeopardizing the electoral fortunes of Mr. Biden, is really taking a chunk out of the pocketbooks of US consumers. And I would hope that when President Macron of France, Chancellor Scholz of Germany, and Prime Minister Draghi of Italy arrive in Kiev tomorrow, that they have a heart-to-heart conversation, or perhaps even confrontation, with President Zelensky, because he needs to really rethink this whole conflict, because if he doesn't, there's a possibility that he will wind up being the mayor of Kiev. That is to say, his country will be carved up, not only by Russia, but by the erstwhile ally that is Poland. This war, as far as Ukraine is concerned, has been an unmitigated disaster.
It has been a disaster, Dr. Horn. And I know that based upon the reports, and I like the analogy that you use, the boxing analogy, and it feels like that way. And I think you say we're seeing it from the viewpoint of Manny Pacquiao. I think the American people, we're probably just not seeing a fight at all. We're watching it from pay-per-view, right? We're not even at the venue, right? But the thing is, President Zelensky's strategy, quote unquote, of constantly badgering, constantly calling for the United States and the NATO and other allies and partners to help. I mean, there have been a number of countries that have contributed. I read about Poland providing some military artillery. Slovakia is doing the same thing. There have been countries all over the globe, especially in that region, that have committed. But I'm wondering, how much longer can that be kept up? I mean, we know the United States is putting out money, and according to the New York Times, $55 billion has already been committed and allocated for Ukraine. But how long can President Zelensky keep up this strategy of constantly asking people for help and Russia not, even aggressing even harder and further along?
President Zelensky is today's version of what the Republicans used to call the welfare queen, which was a slur and a slander against Black women who were supposedly dipping into the U.S. Treasury. But you can really apply that label to Ukraine because they're the recipient of all of our tax dollars. I see this comment in the chat where one of your viewers says that our reparations are basically going to Kiev, which is basically pouring it down a rat hole. Now, keep in mind that while the United States is pouring billions into Ukraine, you have crises all over the world. I hope you're keeping up with the news in Nigeria about these religious zealots who are blowing up churches, engaging in kidnappings.
Wow.
Where is the aid to the government of Nigeria, for example? I think that part of the problem is, you mentioned that Poland and Slovakia and some of these Eastern European countries are clamoring for more aid to Ukraine. But as I suggested a moment or two ago, the people who are really paying the bill, speaking of France, Germany, and Italy, they're getting very queasy and uneasy about this entire conflict, as well they should, because it's led to a spike in energy prices. It also probably contributed to the parliamentary elections in France just a few days ago, where President Macron's opposition did quite well. They'll do even better in the elections that come along in a few days on June 19th. So I think that it's time for a heart-to-heart talk with Mr. Zelensky, a come to Jesus moment, as they say in the United States.
Absolutely. All right, let me bring in my culture crew members, these powerful, dynamic women that have a lot to say on this issue. We got Lisa Winnie, who serves as the host of Millennials Anonymous podcast, and Nira Muhammad, who is an educator and activist, and she also has her podcast, host of Queen's Talk with Nira Muhammad. Lisa, Nira, let me start with you first, Nira. What do you think of this situation? More money is being spent, more military action is being, military resources are being provided, yet there is no end goal. There is no end in sight as to how long this conflict is going to continue to happen. What's your take?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is the fact that, one, we don't know how long this is going to go on for. We don't know what the end result is supposed to be or what Ukraine is trying to accomplish. Inflation, the doctor was talking about how our interest rates are going up, but even going to the grocery store, we can see how this is impacting our everyday lives. Food, the things that we eat, our products. There's a tampon shortage. There's just all these different things that are happening. And again, our taxpayers' dollars, our money is going toward funding a war that many of us don't even support. To be honest, you guys remember when this all first kicked off, I was team help Ukraine. But the more and more that we learned about it, the more and more we saw the treatment of Black, brown, and Asians. Like it's just really disheartening to even see that Biden will continue aiding a country who has shown their true colors in so many different ways. I mean, even their, as he said, it's a very corrupt government as it is, but they really kind of showed us through this process just how kind of corrupt they are, even in their own humanity and the way they treated people who didn't look like them or who weren't from their country. I'm just so disheartened by the entire situation. But the fact that we as Black people in America have been begging for reparations, having these conversations about possible free college or tuition reimbursement or all these different things, and we're constantly being, pushed to the side, it's insulting. It really is insulting because everyone in this country, everyone in the world can get aid but Black people. Yep. When things like, as you just mentioned, Nigeria, when stuff happened in Haiti, when these storms happen, they're barely getting aid. I mean, it's just so many different things that are happening. It's just like to go against Russia. Russia has like the most, no one in the world can even touch their nuclear power. Mm-hmm. So it's like we're going against a country that knew how this was going to unfold. They knew that right now Ukraine is scrambling for artillery, scrambling. Only 10% to go against Russia. That's a joke. Like, that's a joke to Russia. So it's just like, when does this stop?
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know when it will stop, Lise. To be honest with you, And I'm gonna bring Dr. Horn back. I'm gonna bring you back into the conversation in a moment. But Lisa, I want to get your take on what you've heard so far and where we are in this conflict. What's your take?
Well, I think that, of course, there's a lot of money being sent to Ukraine. Like $1 billion today was just announced that they were sending an additional $1 billion over there. So it's a lot of money, and we're not getting a lot of strategy about exactly what is the exit, which we've been through these wars before, like in Afghanistan, where we kind of are in these wars and there's not really an exit strategy. We kind of like get in it. Now, right. I will say that we do need to be a little bit more focused because, again, yes, Russia has an immense amount of nuclear power, but we can't allow a country like Russia to just do what it wants. Whereas if we allow that to happen, what does that say? Where does it end? Where does it stop? Like, they've meddled in our elections and they've caused other havoc across the globe. Like, this is things that they do. We cannot allow it to just happen. But should the United States be sending millions and billions of dollars to aid Ukraine continuously? Because I think there was a stop point that they had as far as the money, and they continue to send it anyway. So I am really interested to see what the foreign policy experts of the Biden administration will do in the future, because things are not looking good, especially with inflation here and the costs, and people are not seeing the connection between what's going on in Russia and how it's impacting the US and what's going on actually here home.
Let me tell you something, Lise. This thing is like a powder keg, and you know, for folks that have been tuning into our weekly conversations with Dr. Horn here, this thing is a powder keg. That's all I can say. It's and I feel like, you know, somebody has to sound the alarm that this is not a good situation for the United States of America. That this is not going to end too well, and not to be in a fear-mongering situation or fear-mongering sentiment. It's just looking at all of the factors and going back to you, Dr. Horn, what you said earlier about we're not seeing the full picture. The fact that we know that the energy situation from Russia to Germany is being disrupted. We know that the wheat situation from Russia with Africa is being disrupted. All of these things are being disrupted right now. Now, the other thing is, and I thought this was interesting, that I came across that the United States is leading a group of a number of countries to create what they call the Ukraine Defense Contract Group. And I'm wondering to myself, oh boy, here comes something else now. What is this about, Doc? What is, you know, I've read that it was a collection or a coalition rather of 50 countries or so that are kind of like committed to it, and that the United States is taking the lead. But isn't that what NATO's supposed to be doing? Like, I'm not understanding the correlation or the connection of this new Ukraine Defense Contact Group. What is that, sir?
Well, I think it portends an escalation. If you don't believe me, look at this morning's New York Times, where their conservative columnist Bret Stephens takes an idea from Admiral James Stavridis, a former Supreme Commander of NATO, who suggests that the U.S. Navy should be dispatched to that theater of conflict, and that the U.S. Navy should confront the Russian Navy. Now, Nira Mohammed just mentioned the point about Russian nuclear weapons and how it has more nuclear weapons than any nation on planet Earth. And that is something to contemplate when you consider these moves towards escalation. I should also mention that NATO has a rather despicable record when it comes to dealing with Black people. You know that about a decade ago, it was NATO that waged war against Libya and that deposed and overthrew the government of Muammar Gaddafi, and has now created a bleeding sore in the heart of Africa, to the point where there have been credible reports about a kind of neo-slavery reemerging in Libya, targeting darker-skinned Africans. You know about all the stories about the Africans seeking to escape Libya and drowning in the Mediterranean and being chased away from Italy by the Italian Navy. So NATO has a lot to apologize for. And rather than going deeper into this quagmire in Ukraine, they should be considering reparations to Libya for all the damage and devastation they inflicted a decade ago.
Amen. All right, I want to go to some of the comments that folks are checking in on and sharing their thoughts about this as we have this conversation. Let's go to Karina Denise. Karina, good to hear from you, sis. Karina, you posted, we are just one corrupt government assisting another corrupt government then, Nira. Yep. I mean, we got to call a spade, Dr. Horn. We got to call it. And Nira, you're right on target with that. Dizzle, good to hear from you, brother. Karina, thank you so much for checking in. Dizzle, good to hear from you. Dizzle said Malcolm Nance, said the fight could very well end by September, saying due to Russia's running out of resources or something like that for the war, and he's on the front lines. So that's his take. What timeline? Dizzle, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for checking in. Very quickly, Dr. Horn, is that an accurate timeline? The end of September?
With all due respect to Malcolm Nance, I think he should have substituted Ukraine for Russia running out of resources. Because let's face it, Russia has a population 4 times the size of that of Ukraine. It's being assisted under the table by the People's Republic of China with a population of 1.4 billion, because China thinks that it would be in the crosshairs next if somehow the Putin regime was overthrown. So this is a very dangerous and combustible situation, and we really need to force the United States government to get its nose out of the affairs of Ukraine.
Wow. Let's go back to these comments. Bradley, it's good to hear from you again, sir. Bradley checked in and says, Russia has one agenda: return to the Cold War. That's not good considering the way we are here in the United States. We just don't need to add that to the mix of everything else that we're dealing with. Janelle, Bradley, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Janelle checked in and said, we have to be clear-eyed about the fact that all of this money isn't actually leaving the machine that is the USA, the WS military industrial complex and other US-based corporations are benefiting. Yeah. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, they have a saying that things can go as slow as the rate of government. Government is slow to providing, we say it's fast. It is fast because over the past couple of months, billions have been allocated. But will Ukraine actually get that money, or how soon will they get that money? We hear about the first part of the process and not the last part of the process. Janelle, thank you so much. Karen checked in. Karen Kofi Carlton checked in and says, look, if you can find money to submit another country, then you should be able to find money for healthcare and infrastructure in the U.S.
I agree with that, but I think that also brings into a conversation of what's Trump, because now we're talking about Trump era. Trump was America first. So do we not get involved with other countries outside of America, and do we keep it here?
Well, and I mean, I think there has to be a balance, right? Like, Trump era, and this is one of the things, I remember Trump specifically saying that he was going to keep everything, local pretty much, right? On a national, that he didn't really, first thing, let's keep it real. He wasn't as competent to do international affairs. So I think that's part of the reason why his strategy was, I'm going to keep everything within the United States, because he just did not have the capacity. And I'm saying that for real. He did not have the capacity to have these very, very sensitive conversations with other countries about how to handle their resources, how to resolve conflict and everything else. So I think that's part of the reason. But
Trump knows nothing about foreign policy.
He doesn't know that stuff.
That is true.
He doesn't even know his own taxes in America. He doesn't even know American government. Let's be real.
I
he doesn't even know what Kansas City is. You know what I mean?
I agree with that 1,000%. But what I'm saying is, I am not a Trump supporter. But if we take it to, we don't get involved with other countries, what happens is, if it comes America first, should we be doing that? Is that what we should be doing, where we take America first, or should we be actually looking at where the strategic benefit to America lies? Because I think that sometimes we do see that, yes, war breeds corruption, it breeds money. Look what happened when we in Afghanistan. The United States they were pouring money. It was so much corruption where we didn't even know where most of this money went until years later. It's the same thing now. Like, they have millions of dollars just spent for Ukraine, I believe, to teach them English or like another language or something like that, when you look at the actual package of where some of this money is going. But I think we do need to have the conversation of, when is the limit? So if American people are saying we don't want to do this outside of America, when do we have that conversation as a nation where we do start taking America first? I think he didn't necessarily do the wrong thing in helping or aiding Ukraine, but again, that's my own opinion.
Well, that's why you're on the show.
Yeah.
To share your opinion, right?
I mean, I do think that there are situations where we should give our aid to other countries, but I also think that there should be some clear direction or plan in place for where that money is going, how it's being spent. Yep. And then also looking at, like, we do need a president that's going to look at it and say, you know what, my people are suffering, my country is suffering. How does it impact us to get involved? He didn't think about that. I don't feel like Biden really took a moment to actually think about how this war was going to impact everyday Americans, the same Americans that he swore to protect and serve. He was all about the middle class. Isn't it the middle class and the poor class? Aren't we being hit the hardest throughout this entire process? So are we being protected? I'm sick of hearing pretty words during campaigns. I want to see actual action. Yes, foreign policy is important. Yes, aiding in war is important. But you're pouring buckets of money that you say we don't have. You're raising our taxes, and yet and still, how does that benefit us? How does it impact us? And then going toward Russia, I care about that. I do care about the fact that they're a nuclear power, because I do want to be here. I don't want this to end like the end of that movie, Don't Look Up, where we all actually died.
Well, you know what?
We all died. You know what I mean? I know that's extreme. That's extreme, but we take it as a joke. Like, Russia really does have the nuclear power to destroy us. They're not that far from us. You know, the globe is actually a circle. So I know a lot of us looking at flat maps, but Russia's not that far off from our Pacific coast. So, I mean, it's just, we gotta wake up.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lise.
I said Sarah Palin said she could see Russia from her house. You remember that?
I mean, yeah, I remember that. Who can't forget that? We're trying to forget that, actually, Lise. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, very quickly. We're talking about what's the interest of the American government? Oil, and keeping an eye out. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer. Right? Like, there's always been, and Dr. Horn, correct me if I'm wrong. America has never taken its eye off of the Russians or the Russian ball, like, ever since the Cold War. So you're talking about interest. That's the interest. When it comes to certain things like oil, when it talks about territories, when you're talking about whoever's in power, America is not going to ask the American people, hey, do you think this is the right thing to do? America is going to take action first and seek answers or seek approval later. That's just the way that American works on its foreign policy. I see oil, I see power, I see another enemy, Russia, coming back, never forgetting. That's the way we're looking at China, even though China has much more vested interest in the United States than Russia. I mean, I see a lot of different reasons as to why President Biden might say this is going to be a problem. This will be a big, big problem. Now, we don't see it on our side because why? We're not getting the full picture. We're not being told the full truth. And as a result of that, we're in this predicament right now. Dr. Horn, you got the final word. What's your take?
Well, you hit the nail on the head with regard to oil. That is to say that with Russian oil being boycotted by the United States allies in Western Europe, Texas oil men are dancing in the streets. I should turn my Zoom camera around so you can literally see them partying in the streets of Houston, Texas. And this whole conflict, the underlying issue is energy, not only oil, but natural gas. And once again, on the Texas-Louisiana border, you have major natural gas facilities, liquefied natural gas, which is then shipped across the Atlantic. So, Brother Muhammad, you put your finger on the issue, and that's what we need to talk about.
Absolutely. Dr. Gerald Horn, it's always a pleasure, brother, to talk to you. Morris Professor of History and African American Studies at the University of Houston. Dr. Horn, it's always good to hear from you, brother. And of course, we'll be bringing you back on again, Dr. Horn. So thank you for your time today. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about the great tampon shortage and its impact on women across this country. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built-in.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years. I thought new phones were for new customers. We got iPhone 13s too, switched to Verizon 2 minutes ago.
Ours were busted, and we still got a shiny new one.
Check it out. So wait, everybody gets the same great deal.
I think that's the point.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. On any unlimited plan, starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Folks, women across the country right now are trying to figure out what is going on with feminine products, as there has officially been a tampon shortage in America. And guess who is not happy? Women who need it the most. Man, oh man. According to many reports, the shortage, and then let me just throw this up here on the screen, Keena. Let's share with folks what's being reported about this situation. But there is a holdup. Consumers, women, have had to contend with product shortages throughout this whole pandemic, but be it toilet paper and hand sanitizer or cleaning wipes and baby formula, which has become a new normal, but one that consumers in the United States aren't accustomed to. Now, that has led to the place that we're in right now, that some of the inventory issues stem from the rising cost of cotton, rayon, and plastic, according to Narev Patel, who serves as the president and chief executive of Bristol Cone, a supply chain logistics company. Demand for such materials has been squeezed in recent years by the rush to produce medical essentials in the pandemic. And now supply challenges are heaping problems on producers. And you know who one of those problems are? Procter and Gamble. That's one of them. That is the maker of the Tampon, the Tampax tampon. And as a result of that, feminine products are put on being on hold. And so if women are able to find some feminine products, they're buying them in droves. They're just taking them off the shelves. And I couldn't have a conversation like this without having two sisters to talk to me about it, because I'm trying to figure out, what do we do about this? All right, let's bring them back in. Our culture crew members, Lise Winnie, Nira Muhammad. Lise, let's talk to you about this. This is becoming a real problem. Women are trying to figure out what to do for their time of need, their time of the month, their cycles, and then when they go to the store and don't see these materials available, what are women saying? What are women doing?
Well, I think that a lot of women didn't expect this, even though with the pandemic, because a lot of this started with the pandemic, and then it's, we didn't have enough product. And it's not just because a comment was saying just tampons. It's actually not just tampons. It's both. So it's all sanitary products for women or people who need them. Let me say that correctly. People who need them.
Right.
So I will say that this is something that other countries have been dealing with for years. Women having access to adequate care and women's healthcare products has been a problem for years. And then we also have to do something where not only are we don't have the products, but when they do have the products, they're raising the price. So we're seeing the inflation hit women. There's already a woman's tax. Like anything that has woman in the name or specifically for women has an increased price. You can look at deodorant. You can look at all of those things. Yep. It costs more to be a woman, and that is unfortunate. And I think this is where we're finally seeing this all come together. I don't know what other women are doing, and what we're starting to see, some women are stockpiling where they're buying a lot of them, which is going to cause an impact, especially for our poorer or less women that don't have as much money. So we're going to see that this is going to impact those poorer or harder hit low income communities, which is unfortunate. So I hope that we do something as far as with inflation. Yes, you mentioned the hike. That is the only way to curb spending. And that is why they raise interest rates. So I don't know if this will bring some of the inflation down with the cost, but we'll have to see.
I don't know, at least because everything has gone up in this damn country. I mean, I'm serious. Everything has gone up. And they're one of the things that CVS has put it out there. They put it out there in an official statement that they've been unable to fulfill the full quantities of orders placed. Walgreens said it is experiencing some temporary brand-specific shortages in certain geographies. I mean, it sounds like the places, the sources that women would go to get these products, they don't have them. And so it's just leaving women in a state of limbo.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly say I haven't had this issue thus far. I will say, though, I'm a little bit bougie about my feminine products. I only use organic 100% cotton tampons and panty liners. So we're pretty full typically because I don't really hit the Tampax U products, which are or Kotex, which is more widely used. So I will say that there are a lot of alternative products that you can use. I've been hearing and seeing a lot more women say that they use that reusable cup. It's like a plastic little cup that you insert inside of yourself and it catches it. You rinse it out, wash it out, you reinsert it. I don't know, a lot of women have said that they're just over. Before this even happened, they're like, listen, I am so tired of buying tampons and pads. Like, I've been doing this for 20, 30 years. I'm over it. I'm ready to switch to something different. I mean, again, I started my cycle when I was about 10 years old. I'm 30 something. So yeah, like 20 something years of my life have been spent literally buying tampons and pads. It's one of those things that's like, as women, we're just so used to doing it. Also, another really, really cool product that I do want to try, they actually have these really, they look really, really cute and comfy, but they're panties. And they even have the boy shorts, like the boxers, and they catch it all. So that we don't even have to wear the tampons or the pads, and you wash them and you can reuse them. And so I do want to give them a try. They are a little bit pricey, as Lise mentioned, but I did see some products that offer them for a little bit cheaper. I saw some on Amazon. So sometimes as women, when in a crisis, especially as Black women, we gotta be creative. You know, I saw that when the baby formula shortage was around, doctors were telling women different ingredients of ways that they can make milk that was sustainable for the infants to digest. So we really have to be creative because we just talked about everything with Ukraine and Russia. We don't know what times lie ahead. So all those systems that we're so used to and that we're so comfortable with, again, as Lise mentioned, there are women around the globe who don't have access to tampons and pads every month. To even get a tampon or pad, they probably like, what is this magic? What is this sorcery? You know, so I mean,
it's so funny because, you know, Davey said, look how concentrated Farajii is. I'm concentrated, Davey, because I'm bringing it up, but I'm listening. You know what I'm saying? This is not my lane, obviously, but I'm listening, and I can only imagine, and you know, being in a situation like this where you're trying, and men and guys, look, this is one of those situations where you're like, man. That's one thing about being a guy. We don't have to worry about certain things, right?
I mean, unless you're an older man and you have some incontinence issues, you need your male diapers, you know, that males do use those if you're going through, you know.
You're right.
They do have those products as well.
That's absolutely right. And I think there needs to be a stigma that has to be the stigma of men going to the store. You know, I remember back in the day getting my sister her feminine products. And you know,
I send you like every month. You know, I barely even get my products anymore.
I don't even blink an eye. It's like, yeah, bro, I got a woman in my house.
Exactly. I'm telling y'all, Farajii knows what to get. Like, he knows, don't you dare come in this house. If it's not organic, don't you dare bring that in here. And another reason why I do support the organic brands as well, because one, they're brands that are made by women. They're small business, typically they're small business owners. Right. And then they also, some of the proceeds of what you spend, they do go towards products for women in different parts of the world who don't have access, or for different programs for girls. And so that is another reason to support the smaller brand. And I want to say healthier because they also have less, they have less toxins, they have less products inside of it. And when it comes to your vaginal health, ladies, treat that cat right and she'll treat you good back. I'm just saying. Take good care of yourself. And like I promise you, the products are not that much more expensive than like always. That's maybe $1 more, maybe $1.50 more. But I promise you, like, my body has seen so many positive changes since I switched from using products that had chemicals in it to organic products. I mean, you're never gonna want to use that stuff again. So make an impact on the world. Be clean, like.
So here's the big thing, I think, and I'm glad that you brought this up there. I mean, Elise, here's the thing. For a moment like this, and I don't personally, I hope that it doesn't continue to be a long-standing situation, right? But for a moment like this, I would think that this would be a perfect opportunity to start teaching girls, young girls, adolescents, just having some different conversations about feminine hygiene, about feminine health. Do you think that can possibly happen, or is that already happening right now, especially within the Black and brown communities and those communities that need to have these conversations the most?
I honestly don't think that we've gotten to that point. And I don't think it should just be girls. I think boys should also learn this, because if they understand the importance of it, they also understand how the body works. And unfortunately, we still have a lot of men that are at the heads of these companies. You would get more and better products if men and boys understood the menstrual cycle just as well as women do. Just point blank, period. But I will say that we do need to just kind of like going back just a bit. Yes, I'm not as bougie, so my cat is not that bougie. So I
promise you, at least they're not expensive though. They're not expensive. I promise you, they're not. They're not expensive. Giant that makes the Nature's Promise brand is really, really good too, and it's all 100% organic cotton. I promise you, it's like not expensive at all. Like it just try it out. And tell me how to do it. Oh, I tried mac and cheese balls finally. Speaking of something to try out. Only Lisa will understand this because we had this whole mac and cheese ball.
Well, I mean, there's so many jokes. There are so many jokes I could say, but I'm gonna just reserve them. So go ahead, Lisa. I'm gonna let you finish.
My bad.
You're fine. No, but I think that we do need to have a conversation though, because again, like the formula shortage, even though it's $1 or $1.50 more, that's a lot of money. It adds up for someone who barely can put food on the table. And like these products typically give you less. So sometimes women are stretching these products out. I think really what needs to happen is there should be some type of stipend for women. I think this is something that they looked at a while back so that we can afford these products, or at least make these products free to women so that we're not constantly spending all of that money. And maybe at that point, and speaking of money that the government is spending, maybe this is where some of that money could go to make sure that all women have access. Because even some women here don't have access every month. And, to be able to do the things that they need to do while they're on their cycle. And that is not what it should be. Like in India, some of the women there in the poorer villages, they use whatever they can find. And this should be. And that's not just happening there, that's happening here. So we need to make sure that there's access just in general.
I feel like the idea of us trying to use something more sustainable in general, I think, and I'm not saying everyone has to do this, I don't do it. It's something I've tried, and I haven't reached that point where I like it enough to do it. But I do think that is something that we should start pushing more to our younger girls. And maybe I'm not comfortable using those tools because I started out using pads and tampons. So now it's like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? Like it's like this. You know what I mean? I don't have a string. You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot different. But if we teach our girls very young and very early on to maybe use those products, I'm just thinking about the sustainability of our earth, of our world, and just what we could do to make it a better place and just more healthy and, less chemicals and all that good stuff. These are things we have to think about because the globe is really changing and we like to pretend like it's not, but we are contributors to our earth.
Absolutely. I want to bring in some comments that folks are checking in and talking about this. All right, forensic accountant. I'm going to post your comment, but I don't know what the response is going to be. Why would any woman still use a tampon in 2022? Then again, many run around for the toxic shock syndrome that rocked this country in the early 80s.
Okay, I've been using tampons for over a decade, and I don't have any toxic shock syndrome. But again, I do understand like your thought process of using the reusable plastic. I just personally, I've tried it. I've tried 2 different kinds. I mean, use what's comfortable for you. Like we shouldn't be judgy about it. Like we can give each other great advice, we can give each other pointers. But again, I'm even saying use it, but guess what? I'm not a user of it. So, but have I tried it? Yes, I have. Try something. If you don't like it, if it's not for you, don't let anyone bully you into using something.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Mike V checked in and said, my masculine products. Yes, Mike V.
Yes, sir. Yes, King.
The masculine products. My masculine products have gone up too. Wave brush and Old Spice Swagger deodorant is crazy right now. Mike V, you use Old Spice?
Listen, I have to agree with him on that.
Mike come into the spot, he be like, "Hello, ladies."
Nah, real talk though, Farajii. I spent some money on those gifts for you though, like those all your little male product, your eye cream and stuff. That stuff is not cheap. And Target got the whole little setup for men now. It's like I feel like I'm at Ulta.
Look, me and Neil talk about this. I'm at that age now where, you know, I was like, oh, she's like, what you want? I was like, give me a bag of products, beard, you know, I need some beard butter. I need something for my hair.
I got him some wrinkle cream for his eyes.
I need something for my eyes. Look, man.
Gotta keep your skin right.
Hey, keep your
skin.
Your nails.
As you mentioned, being a woman is expensive. It's only right that they do these little things to look good for us too. We gotta worry about eyelashes, nails, hair, toes. Now women are too bougie. Look, I'm not this bougie, but women are too bougie now to shave. Everybody has to go to European Wax Center. I'm allergic to wax, so I tried it, and you know that backfired on me because I'm allergic.
Oh no.
Girl, I'm just shaving it on down.
See, now this is about to become a Millennials Anonymous podcast with all of that inside joke. All right, let's go. Let's keep it going. Karina checked in. Karina said, because pads can sometimes be a nightmare, and as a man, be thankful. You'll never understand why. Let me just tell you, I am thankful. Karina, I am thankful. But here's the other thing. I am accommodating as well. So when it's nearest time, I'll be like, she'll be like, go to the store. I'll be like, okay, I'm going to the store. Bye-bye. And you know, that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Rashida.
That's me? I thought that was my before coffee voice in the morning. I thought it was my before coffee voice.
Right, that's the morning voice. Good morning. Rashida checked in and said, look, I started my cycle at 10 years old, and now I'm 50. Now on flow can go to hell. Now I'm ready for the menopause.
Listen, sis, I'm with you. I got my 1 tube tied. So I'm like, do I really even need this anymore? Like, I can't even get pregnant. Like, come on, sis. Bye.
Yes.
I'm gonna just leave it alone because we twins in that way, but I'm gonna leave it alone because like you said,
leave it alone. Thank you. Let's go to Janine. Janine checked in and said, look, and the organic options can be way more expensive depending on where you live, and not to mention women pick brands that work best for their flow. How about that? She also said,
like, first of all, I don't think I'm being I think I'm over exaggerating because I'm pretty sure these organic tampons are not more than freaking Always, because Always is expensive. Let's just be clear. And also, and with the organic ones, first of all, my tampon package for my organic ones comes with super and regular, and they have all different types of sizes and flows. So that's another myth. See, this is why I love this show, because we're debunking myths now. We're educating other women. Organic does come in different various flows, because my sisters and I all joke about it all the time. All three of us have a different flow. We all use the organic products. It's not, and it's, I'm a cheap person. I only go to Old Navy for sales. Farajii, like, you know, I am a very penny pincher. I like to go to Marshall's, TJ Maxx kind of woman.
Right.
But there are some things that you just don't dip on, baby. And my vagina is one. That's
you
for me.
You splurge. There's nothing wrong
splurge for my vagina. You're right.
Okay, let's go.
But I'm not splurging though, because it's really not expensive. Like, it's not.
Right.
I think maybe when they first came out they were, but I think it's more equitable now.
All right, Danita, let's go to you. Danita said, yes, period products should be covered under insurance. It is something that is not voluntary. It is necessary. I agree with that. I agree with that.
But not if they're gonna choose my products for me though.
No,
that's the drawback I have with that. If they're gonna choose my products for me or like deliver me like government tampons, y'all can keep that. I'm good. I'm gonna spend the block for mine.
You got government cheese, government milk, government tampon. No, okay.
Oh, the big bulky drinks that they used to have the school nurse. That's what it gives me PTSD. You know what I'm talking about, Lee.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. The school nurse joints.
Mike Green.
Brick by brick.
Mike Green said a woman's decision is between her and God. End story. That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. And look, that's what I'm saying. And I think that as men, that we should allow the space for women. Like, I can't dictate a woman's body. I mean, we're talking about tampons here, which is a quote unquote like small thing, but then it gets into a larger conversation, Lisa and Nira, about, you know, women's health, reproductive health, women's health in general, right? And then you're starting to get in a conversation from everything from abortion to other rights that women should have on their bodies. And I think that it's very, very important that you ladies have the space, have what you need to dictate and determine what's best for your body. Most importantly, have the education to determine, okay, how do I make sure that my body stays healthy? How do I make sure that everything is working properly here? How do I make sure that I'm being supported? And I think that goes over the head of a lot of people, Lise, that especially men in powerful positions, political leaders, they don't understand that. They still look at the women's body as being a possession rather than a gift.
Yeah, because they don't teach boys to understand first that a woman is an equal and not as, like a possession. That's what they've been taught pretty much their whole lives. And then they don't understand how the body works. And this is why I said this is a disservice to boys when they actually because that was back in the day. But when I was in school, they separated the boys and the girls. Like the girls learned about the girls and the boys learned about the boys. And I was like, that's not how this should be. Men should learn about this just like women should.
I agree.
And again, kind of like going back to what we were saying about the insurance, I think that if they give a stipend, sort of like you can go to the pharmacy and buy it and then you purchase your own products, I think that would be great. Maybe that's something they should look into.
And we don't have the money because we got to help other countries.
Well, that's true. But here's the thing: that speaks volumes. I mean, just something of, and I'm not trying to diminish the importance of this, but I mean, this is a small situation compared to other things. But just doing something such as, hey, we're going to provide a stipend for women products. I mean, imagine if any government, or especially the United States government, were to extend that level of benefit to women. I mean, I would think that would turn this country into, I mean, it would do wonders for this country. Just a simple gesture of the United States government. We understand we're going through this great tampon shortage right now. As a result, over the next 3 months, until we get things with the supply chain taken care of, we're going to provide some stipends. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's just frustrating to me that a simple gesture like this is not something that's being put before the American people, especially the women of this country, and to ease and to relieve some of the burden. It's mind blowing. Neri, you got the final word. What's your take?
Yeah, I just think that, again, all the comments were really great today in terms of the conversation. Women, my last final thought is just do what's best for you and what's most comfortable for you. We all have our own preferences, and it's okay. It's okay. Like, be who you are, do what's comfortable for you and your body. And who cares what other women are doing? Do you think?
Absolutely. Very quickly, I want
maybe
to
don't stock up on too many boxes, though, because then that, just like Lee said, it just makes it worse. Maybe get 2 or 3 boxes, but like not more than that.
Hey, I want to do this very quickly. Hey, Keenan, we got a second quote around how much the feminine hygiene industry is really, really bringing in each and every year. Check this out very quickly, folks. This is from the Washington Post. If you want to know how serious of an issue this is, the feminine hygiene industry is projected to be worth more than $54 billion by 2028, and the average user will pay roughly $1,800 over the course of their life if using tampons, or more than $4,700 if they use pads, according to research by Pandia Health. Applicators and other waste from menstrual products contribute greatly to the plastic pollution choking the ocean. Wow. That should
Yes,
give you a
it
sense of
does.
how serious this situation really is. All right, ladies, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, folks, we're going to be checking in with the mayor of Augusta, Georgia, Mayor Farajii Davis, to talk to him about what's happening in the state of Augusta. In the city of Augusta, the state of Georgia, and so much more. Let's get ready to post your comments and share your thoughts as we have that conversation. And then later, we're asking the question, should civil rights activists be honored as veterans of war? Should they have their own day? We'll have that conversation as well. So stay with us. A lot coming at you for the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
Folks, as we welcome back to the show, and for the second hour, as we have been having a number of conversations with mayors across the country, Black mayors that are looking to take their level of public service to the next level. We've been talking to a number of mayors from big and small cities, and we're just been happy to have these discussions because as much as we talk about the president, the vice president, and even some of the times we're talking about the governors, the mayors are the ones that's really on the front line in this country. If you really think about it, they are the ones that are handling the day-to-day issues facing constituents in all of these states. We can certainly talk about, what this state is doing or what that state is doing, but when you get down to the micro level of understanding the impact that state policy has on local government, then you start to understand why it's important to vote locally. Then you start to understand why it's important to get involved locally. And so we want to continue to have those conversations. And today we are joined by Mayor Farajii Davis, who serves as the mayor of Augusta, Georgia. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. Oh, he's not here just yet. All right, we're going to wait for the mayor to come in. I want to bring in back in our culture crew members, Lise Winnie, host of Millennials Anonymous podcast, and Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad. Ladies, when we talk about what's happening right now in these cities across the country, one of the things that I'm seeing is a lot of people are just totally disenfranchised. We know that. We're seeing that. Black political leaders are really working in a space of being under the gun because Black people are just not being civically engaged at this point. At least I'm wondering, when we look at the role that the mayor plays, when we look at the roles as council people, wards people play, is there a way to get Black folks civically engaged on a local level?
I think that it is. I think that it does start, and I'm going to go a little bit further. I think it starts in school because honestly, we don't teach civics. A lot of people don't understand, honestly, and I'm not being funny. They don't understand how government works. They don't understand what taxes are for, where they come from, how the government prints money, what inflation is. They don't understand any of it. So when you have people that don't understand it, it's hard for you to get engaged with it, and then you don't see the result. So if you understood how government worked, I think more people would probably get involved. And when you put people in place and you start to run for change in your city, you're more likely to get the outcome that you want. And I think that's what needs to happen. We need to re-engage our youth and go to start in school and then work towards actually building up a good electorate of people and a good bunch of candidates that are actually from the communities.
Yeah, and you know what, dear? One of the things that I've come across, whether we're talking about here in Baltimore or in other cities, a lot of people aren't clear as to what the mayor actually does. And I know as an educator, right, you've taught all different subjects, especially for the elementary school age students. But it's interesting that adults, and I'm talking about grown ass people, we still ask, well, what does the mayor actually do? And it's like, wow. Okay.
No, it's funny because I'm just like, I taught fifth grade and I wrote fifth grade curriculum. Civics is taught in fifth grade. Government is taught in fifth grade. That's the part of the fifth grade social studies curriculum. And then you also take it again in 10th grade for American government is your 10th grade. It should be 10th grade, yes.
Right.
So it is taught, but think about how many things were taught in school that we just forget after leaving school. So I think it's one of those things where, it's just like whenever you get into a field, you need not whenever, but certain fields, you need professional development. You know what I mean? You have to, you sharpen your skills. You have a sharp sword. It's going to get a little dull after a while. You got to sharpen it up. So I think that even if you go put on a Schoolhouse Rock video, you know what I mean? You can learn a little bit about some government. There's so many, you can literally Google anything at this point in time that you want to know. You can go on Netflix, Hulu. There are amazing documentaries on there that are about government, National Geographic, so many different things. So at this point, I don't want anyone to say that they just have no access to knowledge, because you do. It's right at your fingertips. But it's something that you have to be willing to go back and maybe restudy, because you did learn it. Trust me, if you finished elementary school, you learned government. If you went through, and I'm pretty sure middle school, maybe seventh grade was religion. It's one of the grades in middle school as well that you do learn government. I know I'm saying going through my Rolodex with curriculum, but you learn these things, we just forget them.
Right.
Public schools, though, they don't have the resources to actually go into depth. Teachers, firsthand.
I taught in Baltimore City Public Schools. We have a whole curriculum that we use for this. We teach government with. It's taught.
Right.
It's taught really well.
Right, but it's taught on you have to teach it to the level that the child is. And I think that when I learned American government, it was very, very surface level information. Now, what it wasn't was, how does this impact you day to day? Okay. Like when we're looking at,
we teach that too. Like that's what I'm saying. Like I'm talking about in Baltimore City right now. They have an amazing social studies curriculum that goes through I just taught third grade. Like it's very in-depth. It is for their age. It's colorful. It's fun. It's interactive. Part of it, they have to do hands-on activities. Part of it, they have to do role playing. It is in the curriculum. It's there. I think that's a little frustrating for me as an educator, because people always say that things aren't taught or they're not taught well. And you're like, no, they are. They are. And it's a really fun curriculum, and I really love it. And I don't know. Maybe we always kind of take it back to like teachers. But again, these are conversations that need to be had in the household as well, because again, it is taught in schools and taught well.
It's not taught everywhere, though. It's only
what
taught
school doesn't teach? What schools don't teach? That's the Common Core. And this is where we talk about Common Core curriculum, because it's a part of the Common Core curriculum for social studies in this country that government is taught on both the elementary, middle, and high school level. It's being taught. I'm sorry to say, it's being taught.
What I'm saying is this: there's a lot of stuff. This is not knocking the teachers. This is not knocking education. You're absolutely correct. At some point, you do need to take a point to get yourself educated. Right. You do need to do that. What I'm saying is this, that when it's taught in schools, there are certain things that you cannot teach. And what needs to happen is you need to be able to get children interested in why this is important. Now, even with daylight savings time,
that's not this point I'm making. We do teach why it's important. It's one of my
I get it. Right. I get.
I mean, I'm talking one of the worst schools in Baltimore City. Like, I'm not worst, but one of the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore City. Like the hood. It's taught and it's a great curriculum. Like, it's not that it's not. But then think about this too. You know how much stuff we teach that it goes in one ear and right out the other. We could do a whole we did a thing about why your community is important. We learned about the different roles, like why can you, but you can have a student that sits there and I don't give a damn about this. I don't care. A 7th grader will tell you, I don't give a damn about this. Like literally they will say that to you. I don't care. I don't want to do it. So again, it's like to just count it out of being a part of the educational process. I don't think that's fair to even make that general statement. It's not. I don't think it's not a truthful statement, and I don't think it's a fair statement either.
All right, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at where we are right now. For example, in the state of Maryland, there's only one state. Maryland is the only state in the District of Columbia that requires both community service and civic courses for graduation. Maryland and DC.
But I'm not talking about civic courses as a part of the actual social studies curriculum. I'm saying they break the social studies curriculum into parts.
I got you.
So it's like I'm a curriculum writer, so I know these things, and most people you can probably even ask your kids like, what did you learn in social studies today? So like you wouldn't even know, but it's literally a part, and that's how they use semantics. But a part of the actual social studies curriculum, both Common Core and various curriculums that you buy, because Common Core is not a curriculum, it's standards, which most people don't know. There's also bought curriculums. In those curriculums, civics is a part of it. It's going to be broken down to A, B, C, and D portions. Civics is going to be one of those A, B, or C parts. Then from civics, they break it down.
I got you.
You know,
I hear your passion. Trust and believe.
It's not saying passion. It's just basic knowledge of curriculum.
Listen, what I'm saying. Here's all I'm saying, dear. Here's all I'm saying. I'm saying that we're living in an educational space in this country where basic things like civics, basic things like history, basic things that was once taught as a general situation was a mandatory element of the curriculum is being removed from curriculums across the country in various districts. And I think that we just have to acknowledge that we're living.
I think the terminology is, I think it's just, I don't think that it's being removed. I think it's simply the terminology of how they label, because we just don't call it civics anymore as it's just, again, that's just educator semantics is the point that I'm making. It's not that social studies that these are not being taught in schools. It's just not called the same thing. That's
what's the terminology?
It's not its own course. It's in the midst of a course.
What's the terminology that?
Again, like I said, it's called American Government. American Government is the course that you would take in high school. And I believe that is for sophomores. Every level of English literature and social studies is different in high school. The courses get more complicated. I want to say even for like 12th grade is when you do English lit. But 10th grade is the year for government. Like that's typically in most states. But again, certain things can change, districts can change. You have charter schools, but again, those basic Common Core things, it's in there. You know, Common Core is like the Bible for teachers, where we build curriculums from, and it's a part of our Bible.
So here's the thing though, and I think to Lisa, I want to give you an opportunity to speak on this. I think that when we look at where we are in this space, right, where we look at the fact that you still have students who don't understand how their government works, and I'm not talking about national government, I'm talking about local government. You probably don't even have students that know what the branches of governments look like, right? Like we're seeing, and I think nearer to your point, we're seeing that there is a dumbing down in this country about involvement, engagement, participation. Not to say that it's not being taught at all, but it's not emphasized. I think it's not being emphasized enough that students feel like when I walk out of school in the 12th grade as a senior in high school, I know how my community operates. I know how my government works. I know what the role that I play in these larger systems. I don't think that's being emphasized.
Well, I felt like I did know those things like closer to graduating, but now it's like once you get 5 or 10 years out, then you kind of forget some of those things that you learned.
Definitely. All right, Lise, what's your take on it?
So here's my thing. I agree with you, and I also agree with Nira. I know that this starts at home as well. I'm not saying that. But what happens is that you mostly learn federal government. So you're learning about the checks and balances, the separate of, the church and state. That's what you're learning about. So when I'm saying that children don't understand the difference, sometimes they'll conflate the two. I'm not saying that it's the education. I'm not saying it's the curriculum, but it does seem like there's a little bit of a blur, and parents can't teach you something they don't understand themselves, and they don't understand how to be engaged. So I do think that there is a line that we do need to get out and do our own thing. Yes, we need to be accountable. If we don't understand how government works, that's not the school's fault. That's our fault. But I do think that there is a point where we need to understand that local politics is a lot different from federal politic of it.
Yeah.
And that's not really taught as much in school, and where that line is.
You know what?
We did teach it.
As a community organizer and as an activist, I did not know those things. I'm talking about, I started when I was about 18, 19 years old. I did not know those things in terms of the intricacies or not really more the intricacies, but I didn't know the systems of local government until we started to do more activism work. I was at a place where I was like, oh, when I started talking to the city council people, when I started talking to the mayor herself and other folks, and then saying, oh, so this is why this doesn't happen, or this does happen. That level of and that's just not emphasized. It's just not there. It's not emphasized to the point where you as a young person feel empowered that you can go into. And there are a lot of young people who become political. Huh?
I don't know. It just bothers me to hear this, because I'm just like, all the things that we do and try to teach, it is like,
you guys
don't teach that. You know what I'm saying? You're like,
talking about, dear.
We just have many elections and mayors, and like we do, like it's just like,
listen to
again, it's just like, general, just make a generalization. We're all lumped together as educators in this one crappy educational system.
No, there's not an indictment on teachers.
I do agree. I do think that some, because I'm not going to speak for myself or the schools that I've taught at, because we have taught about local government. But I don't know if that's something that's nationally taught, if it's just taught, national government. So that is something that could be talked about, discussed. Are we making sure that, we have, and I think within schools, they have their local government within schools. They have the city council, of the school council. So I think they try their best in some ways to mimic. That's more of a city government, the way that school government is set up. And so I do think that there are different ways, and you have debates. I mean, there's all types of different things. But again, you guys got to remember, young people gravitate toward the subjects that really, really interest them. So you might have a young person who hates government and history, so they might completely zone out. Whereas another one might be like, for an elective, I want to take a civics course as an elective because I loved it that much. So again, that's another piece of education that we have to talk about, is that we're all going to be attracted to and geared to different subjects. Some of them not going to interest you, and you're not going to go in depth or want to learn more about city government if you were completely bored out of control. Or again, maybe you just had a boring teacher.
Yeah,
so there's so many factors, you know what I mean? Like if you had a boring teacher, it made you hate the whole subject, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of different factors at play.
No, that's the other part about it, and I think that's the part. Like a lot of times, and look, I grew up when I went to the schools in the 80s and in the 90s. The big, I think one of the big missed opportunities in education has always been, how do you take the student and place the student as help the student to understand where they fit in this educational space, right? Like instead of just teaching mathematics, you're teaching the students that you are mathematics. Instead of teaching science, you're saying your body is made it operates because of science. Like getting students to see themselves in the curriculum. That's
Can I just say that's
now.
what we're doing now? I gotta say that's what's being done now. And it
now
but you brought up math. You brought up math because I hear more parents complain about math and helping their kids with math than any other subject. But I gotta say, as an educator who actually went to college to teach math to children, it's the best math. If your children start off with the math that we have now today in kindergarten, they're gonna have a better understanding of math by the time they get to the 12th grade than what we did. Because as Farajii mentioned, we were taught do this because this is the process. We weren't really taught to understand math. Math is very language heavy now because they're really trying to make these concepts understood so that you're not just doing things from memory, but you're actually mastering skills. My generation, we did not do that. We mastered skills. These children are not taught to master skills. They are taught concept development so that they are not, I'm sorry, they're not taught to memorize. They're taught to master skills, whereas we were taught to memorize. So that's the big difference with education. But you're getting pushback because parents are now complaining that they can't help their kids, which is true because it is so different. Okay. But it's different for a reason because we saw that there were flaws in the way that some of the concepts were taught to us back then. And so when you see those flaws, then you try to rewrite them. And then now you have a group of parents or a generation of parents that are struggling to keep up with their children's work.
And that's a whole nother problem. Well, I want to share some of the comments that folks have been posting as we've been having this very enlightening, vivid conversation. All right, Janelle said, Farajii, you got members of Congress that don't understand how the largest system works. Even locally have different instructions on what powers mayors and councils have. Facts. I mean, look.
Yes, real Brooklyn.
I'm of the school of thought, Lisa Nera. I'm of the school of thought that if you run for office, you should have some insight or have been taught political science.
Yeah, you don't have to go to college in order to run for government. Like you really don't. And I think a lot of people don't.
If you run for office,
bothers me actually. That bothers me to have more education than like my mayor. Like I don't want to have more education than my mayor. Like I want you to have a degree. I'm sorry.
Right, or something like. But if you, that could be one thing. But the other thing is,
I don't expect
you have if you don't know some level. I'm talking about political science, college level.
Foreign policy, you like understand how government works, taxes, laws,
budget, and all of those things. Like
you'll get another Trump.
And I mean, and I'm saying that because we have people, not just Trump. We've had people on both sides. We've had people on both sides of the aisle that's been, and it's good to be passionate. Nera is obviously passionate about education and everything. It's good to be passionate, but when it comes down to governance, you need to know how that works. You need to know policy. And a lot of times, here's the thing, and this is something that I've seen in political spaces. A lot of times, the policy people, what they call wonks, the policy wonks are behind the scenes, and what we get in front of us are basically the people that's like the salesmen of the policy, right? But they don't know how the policy comes into reality. They don't know what that process is. And that's that's a huge disconnect that I've seen in our American political system, that the people that are in front of us have no idea how to make laws or how taxes work, or they don't have any idea about the system. And so, it's the emphasis in our system right now is if you look good, if you smile well, if you're so articulate and all of those things.
I wouldn't even say it's that. It's if you are entertained. We just saw Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania won because they knew him. He was on television. It was like, oh, he entertains
who you know,
us.
Your popularity.
Entertains us. That's where it came from. And that's why when we say how to get people involved, even if it's already being taught in schools and people should already know this, the next step is to make sure that people, once they get out of school, they are electing people or getting people into politics. We need to bring more people into politics, even though I know we're talking about education and being educated. We need more people in politics, not less.
We need more people in education and politics, Lise. You're right.
When you shut down you're not going to vote. You're not going to get out there. And local politics matter, and they impact your day-to-day life more than a federal policy would ever impact you. So you do need to be engaged. And the only way to do that is that people that are in your community look like you, sound like you, and understand your issues.
Absolutely. Let me get a couple of more comments. And Danita checked in and said, Nira, I love teachers and have 2 in my family. Some are not as passionate as you, and they're for the students and therefore the students don't have interest.
I agree.
The majority of teachers are great, but there are some that aren't. That's Danita, thank you so much. You're absolutely right.
I've worked with some that aren't. I'm going to tell you, I worked with some who, I'm not going to front. I knew a teacher who said she skipped social studies some days because the time got away with her dealing with so many behavior issues. And, she's like, some days we just don't get to it. I was like, but you could teach ELA through social studies though. So you can still teach it. So I debunked her excuse because I got to teach ELA. I got to teach math. I said, yeah, but they read in social studies. So
right.
Put them together, baby. Put them together. But yeah, I agree.
Real Brooklyn checked in and said, so it sounds like all 3 of you are agreeing on customizing curriculum for different students. Is that what you're saying? I think so. I think that.
So curriculum already are customized. Some schools have it where teachers can build their own curriculum and write their own lessons. And then you have other schools who buy curriculums. So for instance, the school I just taught at, we actually bought.
Hold on. You
I was just answering that.
No, I got you. No, I'm just saying some people write curriculum and then you say other schools do what?
So
they buy curriculums?
Yeah, so the school that I just taught at, they bought a social studies curriculum. Fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It was interactive. It was awesome. It was beautiful. And we taught civics in there. But it was really, really great. It was a really, really great curriculum. Because again, like I just mentioned, some teachers aren't great at writing lesson planning for social studies or civics or what have you. So in situations like that, then schools will buy the curriculum. That way they're making sure that all children are being taught the same thing. Because again, as I mentioned, there was a time when I was teaching 5th grade, I was teaching social studies. The other 5th grade class wasn't learning social studies. My kids went back to the other kids and were bragging about all the stuff that we were doing in social studies that the other kids weren't even learning. And we were at the same exact school, 2 5th grade classes. So again, some schools, to wipe out that issue, they just buy a curriculum and teachers have to then teach that curriculum.
Wow, that is something else. And I think that goes into a much larger conversation. Damon posted, and he was like, he asked the question, are there even any student councils and or student elections anymore in schools? I think there are.
Yeah, there are. It typically starts in middle school though. That typically is like a middle school thing, but you can do it in your classroom as well, which obviously I'm the nerd teacher. So yes, we had student elections in my class. But and they had jobs too. They got paid. They had a payday. They had to earn stuff.
Awesome.
And a lot of schools do that as well. They have point systems now where kids have to earn things. Like they can't just go on the field trip. They have to actually earn it. So they're putting some more checks and balance systems in place for kids. Trying to.
Well, you know what? When we got to take a quick pause. Hopefully we will reconnect with Mayor Hardy Davis, try to get him back on. Try to get him on for another show. But, I think that this conversation is certainly important to have because, folks, if you aren't involved in your child's education, especially if you want to learn some of the elements that you believe that they should have, that they should know, then you should say something. You should include it. You should talk to your child's teacher. Get involved in some way, shape, or form because you want to make sure that your child is not coming out of these grades or any of these schools unprepared on how to be a better citizen. Look, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, let's ask the big question. Should civil rights activists be honored as veterans of war? I'm going to share with you what one writer has to say about the topic and get your take on it as well. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years. We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago, literally right before this.
iPhone 13 on us on any unlimited plan for every customer, with plans starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. It's a Buick. It's an Alexa. Coach, that's a Buick. That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built-in.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Peace and welcome back to The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we wanted to have a conversation about something I thought was very, very interesting. Now, of course, as you know, I always kind of read these opinion pieces. I love op-eds where people just share their thoughts and ideas. And, you know, it's in those op-eds that some of the best ideas come to light. But then I say, you know what? This is a really good idea. Well, I read an op-ed by a gentleman by the name of Mr. David Dennis Jr. His father, David Dennis Sr., who was one of the original Freedom Riders on the bus from Montgomery, Alabama to Jackson, Mississippi back in 1961. And Mr. David Dennis Jr. co-authored a book with his father called The Movement Made Us, A Father, a Son, and the Legacy of a Freedom Ride. Now, Mr. David Dennis Jr. wrote a piece saying that civil rights activists fought for America's democracy. They should be honored as veterans. Now, let me just share with you what Mr. David Dennis Jr. had to say. Keenan, let's post Mr. Dennis's words. When we look at this situation and this topic, I thought this is interesting. Take a look, folks. He said, as a leader in the American civil rights movement of the 1960s, my dad was an officer in a war that effectively installed democracy in a country that was violently resistant to it. He and his peers suffered terrible losses and pain that they continue to experience effects from. For that reason, the veterans of the civil rights movement should be treated as the war heroes they are, not just in celebration or praise, but in tangible policy. All right, I want to get y'all take on this. He also said the best way to start is to provide these veterans with Veterans Affairs benefits. Let's bring back Culture Crew members Lise Winnie, Nira Muhammad on this conversation. Should civil rights activists be honored as veterans of war? All right, so David saying that should they not just be honored, but they should be eligible for some benefits around this. Nira, I see you shaking your head. Yes. Lise, what's your take on this?
I honestly think that they should be celebrated and honored as something separate. So we need to create something specific to civil rights activists. We had a lot of people who fall into that, but don't necessarily do the same. So it's a level of anybody can say that I am a civil rights activist. And there's not really any uniform system of what that looks like. So that's why I think that it should be something separate, where we do give the benefits to the people like the descendants of Dr. Martin Luther King. I think that he definitely and his descendants should get something because he paid the ultimate sacrifice for us to be able to benefit. Medgar Evers and his descendants, like those people really should have something because they've given the ultimate sacrifice. But we do have some people who label themselves, especially on social media, as a civil rights activist.
Right.
Anybody can say that. So where do we draw the line, I guess?
Well, all right, I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to get near.
Thinking of like elderly people. I was literally thinking of people like, you know, I know John Lewis is like passed on now, but I was thinking of like the John Lewises of the world, you know, because if you think about what does war mean? To be in conflict. They were fighting a conflict that was on our home turf. But then if you go back to the pictures and the videos of what our people endured during the civil rights movement, because I'm 33 years old. I can't be like I'm a civil rights activist. I just personally, I wouldn't say that just because I think of the civil rights movement as that time of Dr. King and all those other amazing folk who got us to where we are today. But I do think it'll be really awesome to give the actual people who have tangible, and there's a lot of proof, you know, some of them were arrested. A lot of them were arrested. You know what I mean? Like if you could prove that you were a part of that civil rights movement during that time, then I think that would be beautiful to gain the benefits. Because like you mentioned, like a lot of them are struggling. They're down in the South. You know, they may struggle with access to health care and things like that. So giving them access to like free health care and other benefits like that, I think that would be amazing because, you know, when you think of what a soldier is, or, you know, they were soldiers. They were arrested. They were beaten. They had dogs sicked on them. They had, you know, powered water, you know, turned on them. So in that space, I do think that they should get something. I'm not really sure if I agree with the descendants getting anything. But for the ones that are still alive, I think they should be more than just like patted on the back.
Well, he brings up this question. He asked that question to at least to your point and to your point too, Nira. He said, how do we determine who gets the resources? He said the easiest way is to use the names of people who are on the payrolls and meeting minutes for civil rights organizations, such as the Congress of Racial Equality, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the 1960s. But that doesn't encompass all the people who need these benefits. A shrinking group of Americans, mostly Black, but some not, now in their 70s or older. For a more comprehensive list of the people who made the movement, we should look to voter registration lists of the era from across the South. And he also talked about those who were part of certain monumental moments in the civil rights history. Now, I'm going to go back to Lisa with you on for this one. Lisa, do you think that that's a good starting point to determine who should get benefits and who should not get benefits?
I do. I think that's a great starting point to at least kind of like narrow down who gets what. But I think still when we put them, this is why I think it should be something separate, that maybe the federal government should give them a lump sum directly or create a different coalition altogether. Because if you know anything about the veteran affairs of the VA, it's in shambles. You know, after the Trump administration, they pulled so many people. There's not a lot of people there. And to subject them to that type of, it's already bad enough that our veterans have to deal with that. But now you're taking them and you're putting them again in this long system where they're going to be on the back burner. I think that's unfortunate. I think they should have their own group, their own organization that specifically helps them. And like with the VA, I think their descendants should, because veterans get benefits for their dependents because their dependents had to go through that war, you know, symbolically with them. They also paid a price. So I think that their dependents should also get it.
And I want to go to some of the comments as we have this conversation. But one of the things that Mr. David Dennis points out, he said that, you know, he spent his entire life hearing about righteous American wars, and that his father's friends talk about the struggle of being in the civil rights movement. He said, I've seen so many of my dad's friends limp to old age because they never got their broken hips or torn ligaments or cracked bones fixed after they were beaten in the 1960s. Wow.
And that's the stuff that I think matters. I think that if you go down the descendants list for this, that can get really, really. That's when I think that's when it can get super, 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 super messy, because one grandpa could have had 20 grandkids. Show every grand. So I think to Leah's point, the VA system is trash. When I say I think they should get benefits, I just mean they should get like free healthcare to take it to wherever doctor, they want to take it to. They should be able to go see whatever specials they want to take it to. I don't think, because you're right. My papa was in and out of the VA hospitals here in Baltimore for years, and boy, do I tell you, I hated taking him there. So I am with you on that, Lise, all the way. But they definitely, as you mentioned, I mean, when you look at the abuse that they went through and not being able to pay to get that stuff fixed, the amount of chronic pain, I definitely feel like they should get some compensation for that. Even you can give them money at this point. They need more than just a pat on the back.
And see, here's the thing. I think that, and I agree, and I think that's a lot of it is our understanding of what war is, right? War is conflict. It's two opposing forces and interests, right? Mm-hmm. War, and I mean, look, we're often here on this on this platform, on this network, we often talk about democracy, and we're talking about the sacrifice that needs to be made. We're often talking about the fight, quote unquote. We need to fight for justice. We need to fight for this and fight for that. But when you think about it, I mean, that takes a toll on you.
Mentally, physically.
Mentally, emotionally.
Think about the Black Panthers, the PTSD that many of the Black Panthers endured. The mentally, the mental, the being afraid, that the paranoia, the drug abuse that came afterward for many of them. I mean, you can't say the Black Panthers weren't soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Like, they fought for the rights of our people. They stood up to governments and were murdered and slaughtered. And their descendants, those who were murdered, they should be. I think they should be taken care of.
Right, because
that's another conversation.
Like, for example, we all talked about the greatness of Fred Hampton, the beauty of the movie.
Yep.
But Fred
21 years old, murdered that way.
Fred Hampton's son, who's a grown-ass man now, right? He never got any apology from the Chicago Police Department, from the government of the United States.
Exactly.
About what they did in the middle of the night to assassinate his father.
And think of how many other young people were murdered during the Black Panther Party movement.
Yeah.
Unjustly, without really any type of excuse or reason. Nothing was done. These are from young. You know what I mean? Like, what was the youngest? 16? Oh, that was the first. He was the first. He was 16 years old.
Who? From the Black Panther Party?
The first one to be murdered, he was 16 years old. The one who had his hands up.
Right.
I can't remember his name. But yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Right.
I think that this still gets a little murky too. And I think some people feel like it gets murky because all Black people had to go through that. So it wasn't just civil rights. Right. So what we're talking about is really reparations at the end of the day, because all Black people had to do that struggle. Now, I do think that there were some people that were on the forefront, but I think that would also lead down this slippery slope of why wasn't this person included? Why wasn't that person included? This one and that one. And it does start to get a little bit murky.
I think stuff that Farajii mentioned is really smart. I think that using those rosters, that's probably the most accurate, rosters, many of them were arrested and boycotts. I mean, I think that you should have to have some sort of tangible proof. Because let's be real, when Dr. King was murdered, he only had a 49% approval rating amongst Black people. So that means 51% of Black people during the time of his assassination did not agree with Dr. King. They weren't about that life. So Black people were not on the front lines of the civil rights movement. They were.
That's the point right there. That is the point right there. The point is, and earlier we talked about little Bobby Hutton. That was the name of the young brother that was killed, the first youngest Black member.
I didn't want to say Bobby Seale, but I knew it was Bobby in there.
Right. But that's the point right there. Like if you voluntarily put yourself out there, being on the front lines, just like a soldier would, like a person would volunteer their services for military service, right? like you voluntarily put yourself on the front line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, soldiers need to get it. And I'm talking about black soldiers. But if Dr. King, his family never got it. I mean, of course, he got the memorial now and thing, but there are families that and we're still learning about their history to this day of certain families or individuals who were in these small towns in Mississippi and Alabama in the South that put themselves out there. And as a result of that, they were either, named or hurt or even killed. And I'm just saying there is no appreciation. And I'm saying that this is during the time, and we're having a conversation during a time where we're asking a question about the state of our democracy in this country, when black people have constantly put their minds and their bodies on the front line to uphold a system that we haven't even gained fully from.
Yeah.
And yet we still do that voluntarily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To this day, we are willing to put ourselves in the hope that we're going to gain something. All right, look.
But can I say though, like thinking about what Leisha said, it is really murky. And if we're going to be talking about, giving monetary or benefits, I think that we got to just talk about reparations at this point. I think that the main, will this push the reparation conversation back even further, as I'm thinking of? And if that's the case, because I mean, where are we going with reparations thus far? I don't want to see this become a situation where we're still not talking about reparations for all Black people or anyone that can prove that they're descendant of slavery, which most of us can. Then, I would rather reparations be the main focus rather.
Here's the thing. I think Black people should get reparations. But if you put yourself out there voluntarily because you love Black people, because you want to see the best for Black people, so what if you get a second level of compensation?
I'm not saying you don't deserve a second level. I'm just saying in the order of operations.
Yeah, but
I would rather reparations happen first, is what I'm saying.
I'm cool.
Oh, I'm about to die. My phone died.
Okay. I'm cool. I'm cool with even having the first level conversation. Like I'm cool with let's having the first level. Like reparations is a huge discussion, right? It's a lot that entails. But if you can identify those individuals who we know were at those meetings, a part of those demonstrations, took that original freedom ride, I'm cool with saying, okay, let them get a little something first.
Right. And I don't disagree with you with that. I just think it should be separate. I honestly think they should have their own commission specifically or organization specifically for them and their families so that they do get the services they need and they're not on the back burner. Because if you wrap them in the Veterans Affairs, like they're going to get put on the back burner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's all right. Let's go to some comments right now. So many people have been checking in. It's always good to hear from our wonderful watchers. Brother King Lee King, my man King Lee checking in. Thank you, sir. Brother King Lee said those men and women who are and were civil rights activists during the Jim Crow era should be monetarily compensated by federal government and the various states' government.
Does this include white people as well, though? Because there were some white civil rights activists. I'm just asking. I'm just asking the question.
Civil rights activists.
Okay.
So even there were the white folk, the white men that were killed from the Freedom Ride. Swerner and Cheney, I believe their names were, right? Why if they put themselves out there on the line for a cause bigger than themselves, as a result of that, they should be compensated or should be at least honored.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that would be fair. They chose that life. And I'm not saying they made the ultimate sacrifice, right? They gave their lives to this thing. So I would definitely say yes. Thank you, King Lee. Good to hear from you, brother. Forensic checked in. Medgar Evers was an actual World War II veteran, and I have the feeling he would say no. Miss Murley may concur. This is not taking away. I don't know either. I don't think, and I hope people don't say, like, again, this is a op-ed from a man whose father was a part of the Freedom Ride, who's seen it firsthand, the impact of putting himself out there for a cause bigger than himself has made on his father.
Right.
Like, unless your family member, and I don't know, of course, I haven't, like, as far as I know, none of my family members have been actively involved. We can all say, yes, we were all in, but there were some black people who probably didn't give a damn about the civil rights movement at the time, right? Like,
sure, they didn't want to rock the boat. They just wanted to live. Yeah.
Like today, we could be like, oh, all black people don't care about black liberation. So I think it's a little, I think we need to be very, truthful and honest there. Forensic, thank you so much. Sophia checked in and said, I'm a veteran. I have a problem with how he's trying to merge everyone. I think it's about, and this is my opinion, Sophia, I think it's about taking, if we're saying that you are a veteran of war, of course you should get your benefits. But there's a war that is happening literally right here in America. And for those men and women who put themselves out there for this war to uphold this system of government, and that is being resisted, that is being opposed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something should be, we're talking about civil rights. We're talking about people during a time when there was no Civil Rights Act, no Voter Rights Act, excuse me.
Right.
So if those people are sacrificing or making the ultimate sacrifice that led to the Voting Rights Act, we should just be like, you're a great American citizen, yet they can't get no health care.
Mm-hmm.
When they die, they have no life insurance. You got to do a GoFundMe. Grandma gotta be buried in some beaten off cemetery. Like all of those things. Like if the United States had a moral conscience, they will say, oh, you know what? They actually push the limit, because let's keep it real. Democracy would not be where it is if it was not for Black people making the ultimate sacrifice during that time all the way up to this time. It would not be. There would not be a place for LGBTQ. There would not be a place for any other advancement of any group of people if it was not for the sacrifice that Black people made to make this country great.
Should they do a lawsuit, maybe like a lawsuit where because maybe that's it. Maybe it's the terminology that I guess some of the veterans are a little bit like, I don't, necessarily like the two, but maybe a lawsuit or a lump sum that the United States government should pay these families for.
You should at least pay for their health care.
Right.
If you
that's what it is.
If you have,
I thought that's the only thing that's being asked for, though. I thought that was what was being asked for, benefits for them. Why is that why do we not want them to get benefits?
See them as being veterans, like they see not in the traditional sense of being a veteran of war, foreign wars, Vietnam, Korea. That's understandable.
Because people don't know what the definition of war is. That's why they don't know what the definition of a war is. They just think of guns. Guns don't have to be blazing for it to be considered. But even if you think about here in America, like we were lynched, we were beaten, we were at war. Like that is war.
Well, we had a civil war here, like on our soil.
I know. My great grandfather, I found out, was a colonel in the Civil War. He was based out of South Carolina. I thought that was really cool to learn. Really? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, so we can talk about that. We could talk about the fact that we're in the time of the great American Civil War right now. When you're talking about an attack on democracy, quote unquote, this is what everybody's saying. Oh, this is an attack on democracy. But there's always a group of people, i.e. us, Black people, that have always defended democracy, even when we haven't fully gotten this benefit from it. I can't emphasize this enough. We're on the front lines of pushing, and case in point. And this is no shade on the representative, the House representative, Mr. Benny Thompson, who's the chair of the January 6th committee. I'm listening to that man, and I got great respect for that man. He's a Democrat. He's out of the state of Mississippi. I can only imagine the stories he would have by saying that he's a black man that came from Mississippi and then worked his way up to becoming a member of Congress, right? And the stories, we can talk about Elijah Cummings. The story, he literally came from sharecroppers and worked his way up to Congress, right? And so that means to tell me that like we are the staunch defenders of democracy. We are the ones that are being constantly conditioned to be the ones on the front line for democracy, even when democracy have failed us.
Yeah.
But we defend it.
So maybe it's just the language, like Lee said, maybe it's got to change the language. It's not like lumping them with veterans, but kind of like, again, giving them their own civil rights activist benefits. But again, like we said, it can't be you were a civil rights activist on Freddie Gray. We care, but we don't care. You know, you gotta put in some more years. You can't be like, I was out there when. No, we're not talking about that, guys. We're talking about way back when the people that had dogs and hoses, the people that were, out there, at diners and getting arrested for sitting for sit-ins. We're talking about those people. Okay, just to be clear.
No. Those people that got their heads busted. What about all those people that went to take the march on Bloody Sunday at the bridge, at the Pettus Bridge?
Yep.
With John Lewis. You mentioned John Lewis there.
Yeah.
With John Lewis. What happened to them?
Yeah, or what about all the children from the Black Children's Crusade who, they led the march? They got, a lot of supporters to finally get off their behinds because the Black people weren't moving. And Dr. King and like, what can we do? The youth wanted to help. Those youth are grandparents now.
Yeah.
And guess what? The only thing they can show for their bravery, because some of us, even young people today, we don't have the damn balls to even think like the things that they did.
Could you
snuck out of school,
walk on a bridge?
They organized that
in the 1950s. How many of us? I mean, then this is to all of those who like to throw shade on. And I get it. I don't always agree with the politics of John Lewis, but I think I'm at a place in my life where I can appreciate John Lewis and others, because I don't think nobody got you're talking about going to the South, walking on the bridge. You ain't got no guns. You just walking with a hope and a prayer and a belief that things are going to get better. And you get your head busted. You got dog sicked on you. You got hoses sprayed on you. And you mean to tell me the only acknowledgement of your citizenry, only thanks that you get for moving this system of things further along is a damn medal?
And we're not even going to talk about the fear of lynching, especially for the people in the South. If you got involved, you might have made it home, but that does not mean that you were going to have an army outside with pitchforks and fires blazing outside of your front door, dragging you out with a bunch of people watching, like for sport. We cannot. So many of us, with the fear alone of being lynched, would have said, no thanks. I'm gonna mind my business. I'm gonna mind my business.
We can't even. We don't know. Let's take it. Let's put it where the goats can get it. We don't want to speak up when there's a shooting in our own neighborhood when we know the jokers. Pulling the trigger. Let alone going against an enemy who's in your face, tell you, "I will kill you, nigga."
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and you've seen it. Your family strung up on trees.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Every day, imagine the fear.
Yes, look at what it did to even Billie Holiday, to some of our great musicians, from seeing that. Just from being on a bus and driving through the South and seeing Black bodies hanging from trees. Think of what that does to your psyche. I mean, come on.
Look, imagine the strength that it takes, like a mother, Ruby Bridges' mother, to put her in that school. Yep. You're sending your child in the line of fire.
Yep.
Every day.
I remember the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about growing up in Georgia and him walking down the road and seeing bodies still hanging from trees. I mean, as a child, can you imagine that? As a child,
no, I can't.
That's what's the terminology that we use when we see casualties of war, right? There were a few weeks ago, they were talking about the bodies that were laying in Ukraine, right? And as a result of all of this stuff that happened, and there were pictures all over the world, like, look at the Ukrainian people laying on the ground. And look, I'm not getting into the politics of that, but I'm just saying, black people, can you imagine black people growing up in the early 20th century? You walking down in Georgia, Alabama, and you just see black bodies, just like Billie Holiday said, that strange fruit hanging from the tree. And that was just
say the fear of being a black person post-slavery period. Post-slavery and the Reconstruction was a joke. If anybody that was a joke. The government, it was an absolute failure. I mean, being black, especially in the South, I mean, I'm still scared to be black in the South now sometimes. And there are parts of Maryland that I don't like going to. Carroll County.
That's what I'm saying. Look, we're gonna have to wrap up this show. But I wanted to get a couple of more. Mike V checked in and said a war is a conflict between two separate militaries. Not sure how that will hold up in court. I don't know. I don't know the legal part of
the people
that,
versus the government, the United States government.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe the people versus the people v. United States America. I don't know. But guess what? Even though the militaries might not be there, their policy damn sure are structural violence.
But let's be real, he's incorrect in that definition, because that definition doesn't just stop there. You can be at war within yourself, sweetie. There's a lot of different ways. If you look up that word war in the dictionary, you're gonna find more than one definition. So we can play with semantics all we want. We can go back and forth.
I don't think he was trying to. I just think
no, he's not. But I'm just saying, like, you can't just say it's war is not just between two militaries. That's just not. That's not it. Doesn't just stop there.
War is conflict.
War is conflict.
War is conflict.
Use that when countries like Rwanda committed genocide, they said they went to war against their own people. So it's been used multiple different ways. But
we can't just box it in.
At the end of the day, they need something.
Davey Floater. Davey said, if you're black and the police crack your head, throw you in a cage for using your First Amendment, that means you're at war with the state. You are that.
Thank you.
Real Brooklyn say, you were war with the state. Now, look, here's the thing. Showing up and being there is the big requirement. Not in just those violent moments, but like the writer of this piece said, showing up on the voter registration or showing up at a meeting, organizing meeting. Like if you're showing that you are being active in this process of civil rights, then I think that should make. And again, it may not be the same benefits as what you would see from a veteran of a foreign war. We're not talking about that. The benefits could simply be at least provide health care, because I got my ass kicked as a result of that demonstration. And y'all need to pay for that.
Or maybe it could be mental health. They might want to see a therapist.
No doubt.
They might want to see a psychologist. They might want to see someone for their PTSD. There's so many different things. But again, like everyone is saying, the VA, they need some better stuff too. So that's another conversation. But all around, Americans are suffering.
Yeah.
No matter what group you fall into.
We all suffer.
We all fucked up.
Yeah.
We all suffering. And I think that I'm just saying this, and it may this conversation or this effort may not go too far in the policy space, but I think that it's important for us as Black folks who are watching this show, who are watching this network, understand that these men and women who put their lives on the line, literally, for us to be in the space that they're in today, right? For us to sit in the, we talk about Rosa being able to sit in the bus. It's bigger than that. That was an act of war at that time as well. So I'm talking about, we have an appreciation for our civil rights heroes and sheroes, and seeing that their contribution is really much more valuable because they contributed to a system that they didn't gain nothing from. And yet we push back on the idea of doing something for ourselves or creating a system for ourselves. We give it all for another man's system, but we give very little for our own system.
Yeah.
And that's the part that we need to really start to look at.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, ladies. I appreciate y'all. Man, fiery conversation today. I knew this was going to be a good day. I knew it. You bring Lise Winnie and Nira Muhammad on the same show? Sparks will fly, baby. I appreciate y'all both. Lise,
I love Lise. I love Lise. Can I just say for everybody watching, because me and Lise, we go way back together, and I want y'all to go check out. We have a whole show, Insecure, Unsecure, for those of you that are fans of Insecure. If you did not watch the last season of Insecure, if you did, I don't care. Go back and watch it, because me and Lise together are funny as fuck, especially when we have wine in us.
It's a podcast that you know it's not for.
Yeah, go watch it on YouTube. Go on YouTube. Watch us on YouTube. It's funner.
I love it. Millennials Anonymous, Queen Talks with Mir Muhammad. We got two dynamic, dope black women that are doing big things. Thank you so much, both of you, for being so good for the culture.
Anytime. Love you, Lise.
Love you too.
I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Oh my goodness, what a dynamic set of conversations. Folks, make sure y'all tune in tomorrow. We'll continue to keep the conversations going. I want to have a discussion about fatherhood tomorrow. So we're going to have that discussion with Brother Richard Rowe and so many other things we got on the docket for tomorrow. But I appreciate each and every one of you. Folks, if you enjoy what we have been presenting to you today, make sure you go to blackstarnetwork.com. Show your support for Black Star Network. Show your support for Black-owned media that is unapologetic and unfiltered like no other. We're going to have the conversations and we're going to bring up the ideas that we need to discuss, that we, based upon what you say and based upon what's being said, that's in the best interest of the Black community. So I only hope and pray that as we have these conversations here on The Culture, that you appreciate that we're trying to broaden the scope. We're trying to expand the discussion. We're trying to take things to another level. And more importantly, we're trying to deepen your consciousness about how you see yourself and see your brother and sister around you. So continue to support Black Star Network at blackstarnetwork.com financially or with your shares and likes and your downloads. All right. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin, my big brother, with Roland Martin Unfiltered, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, family, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a safe afternoon and evening. Talk to you soon. Peace.
iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.